Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. Today, we are talking about narcissistic abuse in the context of friendships. Yes, friendships. That's something that we don't talk about all that much. Unfortunately, narcissistic abuse doesn't just occur in family relationships and intimate relationships, and it absolutely can occur in friendships. So I hope this episode gives you a good sense of how to identify narcissistic abuse in friendships, what it looks like, how it's different than in intimate relationships, and some strategies that you can use if you find yourself in this type of friendship. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. Today, we're going to talk about something a little bit different. Usually, when we talk about narcissistic abuse in the context of relationships, we talk about intimate relationships, or we talk about relationships to family, parents specifically. But today, we're going to talk about narcissistic abuse in the context of our friendships. And this is something we don't talk about quite often because I think a lot of people don't realize that there's narcissistic abuse occurring in friendships because we don't really think of it in that context. But the other piece of it is, if you are aware that that's going on, who do you tell? Who do you talk to about it? So I'm going to take a deep dive into 8 primary ways that you can identify whether or not narcissistic abuse is occurring in any of your friendships. From personal experience, I can tell you that I have experienced this type of abuse within a friendship. And even being a psychologist who specializes in this, I can tell you that I didn't even recognize it at first. And part of that is because in the beginning stages, like all narcissistic abusive relationships, it starts as love bombing. Now, love bombing in the context of an intimate relationship looks very different than it does in a friendship. So let's start with number 1, and that is love bombing. This is how love bombing may look in the context of a friendship. You meet each other, let's say you meet each other at a work event, you meet each other through your children, you meet each other just randomly one day walking your dog in the dog park. And you really hit it off. You have so much in common with this person. You guys speak the same language. You're interested in the same things. You have a ton of common interests. It sounds familiar, right? But in the friendship world, love bombing is the last thing we'd be thinking about because we really think about it in terms of intimacy. So here you have this friendship, and it just seems like you met your perfect partner, your partner in crime. And what happens is in the beginning of these relationships, the texting starts constantly, right? Let's meet for lunch. Let's meet for drinks. Let's meet up with the kids, or let's go have a drink after work, or why don't you come over? I'd love to get to know you better. And so these are the things that start to transpire in the beginning of a narcissistic abusive friendship. It's almost too good to be true. You can't even remember your life before this person was in your life. They've enhanced your world so much. You start doing things together. You really start to kind of maybe intertwine your families together. They meet your spouse, they meet your kids, they meet your other friends. You start taking vacations together, and you start doing all of these things because it just clicks and it just works. And who doesn't love that? I mean, we're all searching for these people that we can connect with on a deeper level, and you found it, and you found it in a friend. And that's super important, and it makes you feel good. And so now you're in. Now you're stuck, but you don't know you're stuck yet. And again, this can look like, extending invitations to dinners. This could look like running errands for you, right? Going to the market without even telling you and just showing up with things they know you like, sending you gifts, thanking you for your friendship. And again, out of context, there's nothing wrong with this, right? This just looks like a really solid, good person that you met. And then before you know it, similar to intimate relationships, you find yourself talking to them about very personal details about your life, right? Maybe you start sharing information about your upbringing and how certain things happened in your life, and then they're relating and they can totally understand what you're going through and you feel so safe with them. But like in other love bombing situations, they don't really care. What they're doing is they're storing this information for later use to manipulate or to hold against you. The other thing that starts to happen is you start to not spend as much time with your other friends. This friend starts to really consume a lot of your time, but you don't mind it because they're fun or they get you or they really understand you. Maybe you even start spending less time with your family. Maybe they start talking to you about how they're having marital difficulties and they really push you to talk about your marital difficulties and you kind of join on that. But what they're doing, again, is kind of getting that information, storing it for later use so that they can slowly start to, almost like a web, start to spin their web within your life. So that's the first thing. Generally speaking, once you're in that, once they kind of suck you in, right? And now you're in this friendship. One of the things that narcissistic friends hate is they hate seeing you successful. They do not like seeing you succeed because, one, success for them does not involve the narcissist. They don't have control over your success. So again, that's something that is a step towards autonomy. We talk about this a lot, that they view as a threat. They view as competition. And we're going to talk about competition separately. They view as a threat. They view as a kind of a barrier to getting supply. They don't have access or control over your success. So any success you have that puts you in the limelight, they don't like that. So what you'll find is they're not very supportive of your success, or they'll become very passive aggressive, or they become extremely competitive. And we see competition a lot. And I'm not talking healthy competition. We see competition a lot in narcissistic abusive friendships. And what this can look like is, let's say you get an award for something, right? They may not congratulate you, or they'll kind of half-ass congratulate you. They'll make it, like it's no big deal. Or something happens for you and they one-up you. That's a very common thing. They always have to one-up you, but they do it in such a way that's very subtle that you can't quite call them out on it. Because if you do, then you almost look like you're not happy for them. And so you see a lot of this competitiveness where you don't really get to enjoy your success with your friends because they're kind of coming at you with, well, I did this. Because you're a good person, you don't want to ignore their success, whether it's made up or not. So you entertain their success. You're happy for them. You want them to succeed because you're not a narcissist. And what it does is it takes away from you being present with your success. They cannot handle you feeling accomplished or happy or whatever the case may be if they are not the ones providing that emotion to you. So you're going to find a ton of competitiveness and they're not happy for your success. What's interesting, however, in these types of relationships, and this kind of goes into part 2, they're going to be really supportive if you fail. And why do they do this? Because they may not want you to succeed because it's a threat and they don't like that. But if you fail, you need support. You need a hug. You need a pep talk. You need a friend. And they will look like they're coming in to save the day and convince you that you'll be okay as long as you have them. So again, they will not clap for your successes. They may even not even congratulate you. They may be very passive aggressive. They may kind of one up you in your face. And if you call them out on it, they'll say, well, of course I'm happy for you. What are you talking about? You're crazy. That's in your head. Why wouldn't I be happy for you? I'm your friend. It's very hard to call them out on it. But they will be there if you fail. They may say things like, I told you so. They may not be the most supportive, but they are going to be there when you fail because they want to control that narrative. And they want to make sure that you think that in order to come out of that slump of failure, you need them. And by doing this, they start to control the narrative for you that it feels weird if you succeed. Something with them feels weird. So you don't really want to tell them about your successes, or you don't want to tell them about something good that happens because it seems to upset them, or they start to act weird towards you and you're not sure why. And you don't necessarily want to ask them because maybe it's in your head because they're your friend. So you don't really share your successes anymore with them. You don't celebrate them anymore. And they know this. And the reason why they do this is exactly that, so that your successes become muted. Even if they rave about their own successes. And they will say something to you if you don't support their success. But you'll notice that every time something happens that's good for you or beneficial for you, it's either met with a coldness, a lack of support, or one-upping you, which you then need to acknowledge, or you'll be told you're a bad, unsupportive friend. So the next thing is random silent treatments. And we think that this only happens in intimate relationships or with families, and that is not the case. Oftentimes in these types of friendships, they will just stop talking to you, stop returning phone calls, stop making plans with you, stop responding to text messages. And you, at first, maybe they're busy. Okay, I hope everything's okay. They never do this. And so maybe you start calling them more or texting them more and they're not responding. And they just ghost you. And you have absolutely no idea what you did. And you're sitting here trying to think about what it was that you did, but you can't pinpoint anything. Well, maybe it was, I went to lunch with my other friend. Maybe they're mad about that. Or maybe they're upset because, maybe they thought I was bragging about my promotion and it upset them because maybe they're struggling at their job. So you're sitting here trying to think of all the reasons they could possibly not be talking to you. No different than intimate relationships. And so it's really a way for them to control the narrative, keep you guessing, keep control over you, because they know they're not talking to you. You're definitely thinking about them and wondering why. And here's the thing. It's not uncommon when that happens to see a post, let's say on social media, of them out with a group of people, maybe even some of your other friends, a dinner that you're not invited to. So here they are not talking to you for no reason, not texting you back, not calling you back, not inviting you, but now they're out and they're having fun and you see this. And that's on purpose. So now you're confused, you're upset, you're sad. You ask them if they're mad. And eventually they say, no. What do you mean? Why would I be mad at you? It's totally in your head. Why are you being so possessive? All I did was go out with friends. Are you mad you weren't invited? And so you see that gaslighting start to take effect. So now you think, well, yeah, I mean, they're my friend. Why would they just randomly stop talking to me? Maybe I was being too sensitive. So you can see how this over time, obviously this does not happen overnight, but you can see how over time, being a good person really can set the stage for you to start doubting your perception of your friendship, doubting your perception of what you did and didn't do, what you said and didn't say. And then they start to use that to control the narrative of the relationship. The fourth thing. These are the type of friendships where after you spend time with them and you come home, you feel like you need a nap for a week. They just drain everything in you. It is so emotionally and cognitively taxing on you, whether it's you feel you need to be on your best behavior with them, you have to really be mindful of not saying certain things to upset them, right? It's the equivalent of walking on eggshells, and it's very exhausting. So you'll find that having plans with them is extremely, it's just a lot of effort. And you feel this pull to still have to make plans with them, to still have to see them because you don't want them to get mad at you because now you're in this narrative, this web. But it totally drains you. And it leaves very little room for anything else. It leaves little room for you to interact with other people. It consumes your mind. So maybe when you're home, you're not really present with your family. It consumes your time at work. It's just very all consuming, and yet you don't know why. You just know that when you're around them, you have to really temper what you say, how you act, what you talk about. You're constantly trying to read their moods, their emotions. Are they angry? Are they upset today? Did I do something? I'm not quite sure what's happening. But again, if you say something, they'll say, no, it's fine. What are you talking about? And so you feel stupid. You feel like an idiot for even asking. Maybe it is you. Maybe you're just way too sensitive. Then what happens is they may say something like, you're so possessive or you're so controlling. I'm allowed to have other friends. And you're sitting here saying, well, of course you're allowed to have other friends. I never said that. Right. And then they may throw back in there, well, I don't know. I mean, you did say growing up that, you felt like you had no friends or you felt like you were bullied. And so, bringing that to the forefront, this is not what I'm doing, and so that's when they use that past stuff that you told them in the beginning and use it to their advantage to kind of make excuses for why you're doing what you're doing now. Again, no different than intimate relationships, the same process, same blueprint. Another thing, fifth thing that they do, you will find that they absolutely unload all of their issues onto you. And again, this is what friends are for, right? But we're here to talk to each other about our problems, get advice, get feedback, or just vent and someone just to listen. But what a narcissistic person does in a friendship, they don't just vent. There is just constant, just verbal diarrhea, just constantly dumping on you, leaving you no room for your own stuff. And if you don't attend to their every emotional need, you're a bad friend. And they'll go right to somebody else. And they'll make you feel horrible for it. So if they're having a breakup, right? If they're going through a breakup or they lost their job or a family member passes away or they're just having a bad day, they expect you to carry all of that for them and be there whenever they need you. And if by chance you're not, or you're at work and you're busy, or you're in a meeting and you can't answer your phone, or you're with your family and you can't answer your phone, or you're out to dinner with another friend, you're going to get that you're not there for me, you're not a good friend, I'm always here for you, I would never do this to you. And then what happens is you're stuck defending your ability to be a good friend. You're stuck defending things that the conversation wasn't even about in the first place. So they have this entitlement to dump on you of all their issues, and you need to be there whenever these issues come up, no matter what you're doing. Doesn't matter. It's not important. But when you need them, when the tables are turned, they don't really care. Or they'll give you advice that's really short, that's really not helpful, or they'll be extremely condescending, or they'll tell you, get over it. It's not a big deal. You keep talking about this. It's getting really old. And they really will block your ability to communicate this with them. And you'll be made to feel once again that you're asking for too much, that you're overreacting, that, you can't handle anything on your own, or you're making things up, you're exaggerating this, and that you're wasting their time. It's going to constantly feel like you are overwhelming them and that you're never there for them, which couldn't be further from the truth. But again, this is the gaslighting that takes place to make you feel this way. Again, no different than other blueprints of narcissistic abuse that we see. Another thing that happens, they place a ton of demand on you to take care of all their needs. Whatever they need, if they ask you, you're responsible for that. That could be emotional needs. It could be physical needs. It could be material needs. I have seen narcissistic abuse in friendships where they are constantly asking the person for money, paying for their rent, paying for their food, paying for everything, and never offering to reimburse them, and making them feel horribly guilty if they don't. And so there's different aspects of needs that a narcissistic friend will go after. They may go after you because they like the success that you have and they want to be in the limelight with you. Or they may like your group of friends and they want that to themselves. And you're the way that they're going to get that. Or let's say that you live a certain lifestyle and they want that lifestyle. So that's what they're going to go after. So they have these needs that they make you solely responsible for meeting. And if you don't meet them, you're a terrible, horrible person. You're a horrible friend. And they may just discard you, just cut you out for no reason. And you'll be wondering what you did, and they will never give you an answer. And then you may see 3 weeks from now, they have buddied up with another person. And now they're traveling with this person and they're doing all these things together. And it's the same thing they did with you. And just like love bombing in intimate relationships, you're going to look at this and say, what the hell did I do wrong? Why are they being so nice and so attentive and so friendly with this other person? What happened to me? They just kind of left me on the roadside. I'm just dirt. I'm done. And so you're really confused because you don't know what you did. And you'll see just like with intimate partners, how they jump from one to the other, to the other, to the other. The same goes for friendships. Narcissists in friendships will align themselves with people that benefit them in some way. Again, whether it's their social status, their financial status, their friend group, whatever it is, information, whatever. But they'll align themselves with somebody, buddy up with them, pair up with them, totally like form a web around their life. And then when they've gotten what they need from that person, they go to somebody else. So you'll see a lot of these friendships where they're really close with someone for 6 months. And then they're really close with someone else for another 6 months. And then maybe they go back to the other person for another 3 months, but then they're really close with someone else for, a year later. And what it is they don't really have these, they have a lot of friends, but they're always tagged up with one person. But that one person shifts constantly based on what the narcissist needs. Now, along those lines, if the narcissist is constantly demanding that you take care of their needs and give them what they want, when the roles are reversed, your needs do not exist unless taking care of your needs benefits the narcissist in some way, unless it looks good for them in public, unless it looks like they're this really helpful, loving, loyal friend, then they'll help. If it's posted on social media or if it's in a big group of people, they'll be very helpful. They'll be very attentive to your needs. But behind the scenes, your needs do not exist. In fact, they're an inconvenience. They're an inconvenience to the narcissist. They don't benefit the narcissist unless it makes them look like they are just the best friend that could possibly be. Oh my gosh, I can't believe so-and-so did this for you. That's such a good friend. And remember, while all this is happening, this isn't a constant thing. I mean, this is something that's intermittent, right? One day they're ignoring you. The next day they're sending flowers. The next day they're asking you to go to lunch. The following day they have a birthday party and they don't invite you and you have no idea why. So these are the type of things to look for. Again, it's this intermittent relationship, this intermittent connection. But the whole point of it, like any other narcissistic abusive relationship, is manipulation and control. At the end of the day, yes, they know what they're doing. They are doing it so that they can control and manipulate the scenario and get from you what they need. Again, whether that's social status, friends, a certain lifestyle look, money, to get into certain groups, to get into certain clubs, to whatever the case may be, to get certain information about people. Whatever they need, they're going to get, and they're going to get it through using a friend. Now, here's the other thing. They don't just do this with one friend. Keep in mind that if they're, a narcissist is a narcissist all the time. So they're not just going to be a narcissist with one of their friends. They're going to be that way with all of their friends. But it just depends where in the cycle of narcissistic abuse you are with them. You could be on the discard end of things and they're love bombing a new friends to take in, right? Maybe their kid just got to a new school. And so now they're going to love bomb the head of the department, or, the friend of the head of the department, because it's going to get them what they need. So it's very need-based, like all other narcissistic relationships we talk about. Isolation. Just like in other relationships, somebody who's a narcissist within your friendships, they're going to do everything they can to isolate you from your existing friends, prevent you from making new friends, make you think that you are not a good friend and that people don't want to be your friends. And they're going to make plans without you, all of which is used to isolate you from other people. Because the more they can isolate you from other people, the more perspective you lose. The more perspective you lose on who you are in that friendship. So just like in other narcissistic relationships, the whole goal of isolating you is power, manipulation, and control. So they'll start excluding you from plans. They will start saying things like, you're really difficult to be friends with. I don't know how people are friends with you. Or they may start talking about your other friends. So, that girl, Jamie, I don't know. I don't really like her. I don't really trust her. I don't know how you're friends with her. They also may try to isolate you from your family by saying things like, oh, is your family always that controlling? Even if they're not. Well, I thought it could just be a friend thing. I don't really want family involved. And so they will do these things just like intimate relationships, where they start to slowly isolate you in very subtle ways that look protective, that look loving, that look nurturing. And before you know it, you haven't spoken to your other friends for God knows how long. You really haven't spent time with your family. You haven't gone to the gym. You haven't done things that you normally do because you've really just been consumed with them. Or they take something that you enjoy doing, let's say going to the gym. And now you guys go to the gym together all the time. Now you're gym buddies. And if you go by yourself, though, now you feel guilty and bad because they kind of give these subtle hints of guilt. Let's say they try to make you feel guilty about it. And you're a good person, so you don't want them, you don't want to feel bad. You don't want them to feel bad. So you don't go to the gym when you want to. You wait for them. And so before you know it, something that you had for yourself, like going to the gym, now becomes contingent on them. They'll go whenever they want, but for some reason, when you go without them, it's an issue. So they're isolating you not just from other friends, but also from things you enjoyed, maybe from your family, maybe from work, maybe from work events. And again, the goal of which is to isolate you and kind of gain control and power over what you do, who you do it with, and what you say, so that you end up needing them more because you're really alone. You haven't really spoken to people in a while, and they're really your only outlet. So you can see how this slowly over time starts to really close in your world without even realizing it. And I use this example all the time, like a leaky faucet. You see that it's leaking. You don't really pay much attention to it because it's not that big of a deal. It's there, but I'm not paying attention. And then before you know it, you're standing in your kitchen and you're knee deep in water and you have no idea how the hell you got here. Okay. So the other thing that happens, I lost track of our numbers. I think we're on 6. They will talk very badly about people that you're currently friends with, people that you work with. They're going to smear their character. They're going to say things like, they're not really your friends. They really don't care about your best interests. Your family never listens to you. They don't care about your best interests. They're going to really talk about people that they know you're close with other than them and do things like start to triangulate you. So narcissists like to be the owner of information, right? They like to be the middleman of a dynamic so that they can control the narrative. They can control what information is given to who, how often these people talk. So they put themselves right in the middle. And let's say you and another friend's, your other friend has become friends with this narcissist because they're one of your friends. And over time, this person, this narcissist, starts to befriend your friend and starts to exclude you. But at the same time is talking badly about this person to you and talking badly about you to this other person. And what they do is they start to smear the characters of everybody involved with the goal of making you not trust these other people. So and also make you doubt your judgment of picking people. If they're bad mouthing all of your friends and saying, this one does this and this one does this, and you believe them, because why wouldn't you? And you really start, and again, you're isolated at this point, so you don't have anyone else to bounce these ideas off of. You don't trust yourself anymore in terms of your friendship judgments. And so you really start to believe their assessment of your existing friendships, which probably makes it very likely that you're going to start to withdraw from these other people because, quote, they're not healthy for you. And what that does is exactly what the narcissist wants, which is to leave you isolated and alone with no outside support, and them dictating to you what you're going to think, what you're going to say, where you're going to go, and when you're going to go. And that's where you're left at, right? Now, here's what happens in the end. Let's say that you start to realize what's happening and you realize this is really toxic and really healthy, and you're going to start to implement boundaries. Okay. Maybe you're going to stop responding to their messages, or you're going to start making plans with other people. You're going to start initiating contact with people that you've lost touch with. You're going to go back to doing things that you used to do that you haven't done in a while because your friend didn't want you to do them anymore or didn't want you to do them without them. And what's going to happen is as you start setting boundaries, you can bet that you're going to get called out, but not directly. What'll happen is they may say things like, "You're different. Why are you being so selfish? Why are you being rude? You've changed." And they'll start smearing your character to the people that you're trying to kind of get back in with. So they may talk to your other friends and say, Jamie, she's gotten so selfish. She's gotten so obnoxious. I don't trust her. She's different. I don't know what's going on with her. And they're going to try to ruin your character and ruin your credibility as a way to protect themselves just in case you start to figure out who they are. Again, no different than other types of intimate relationships. But the whole purpose of smearing your character, once you start to set boundaries and distance yourself from them, is that they want to make sure they get out ahead and set the tone and set the narrative so that when you start to figure them out, your credibility is shot. The most important thing about this is, even though it may kill you to do this, do not waste one bit of breath or energy trying to defend your character when a narcissist is trying to smear it. That's what they want. The best thing to do is to ignore it, not defend it. Let it ride out. Because the more you kind of attack that, the more control you're kind of giving up and giving to them. And they want that so badly because they don't have any other way to control you now, because you figured them out. You started setting boundaries. Okay, let's say you've blocked them on social media. They have no access to you. So the only thing that they can do now is control at least try to control how other people see you. But don't chase after that. Don't chase after that, because eventually they will find a new buddy to get their supply from, to buddy up with, and the whole thing will start cycling all over again. Keep in mind, however, just like in other relationships, at some point, they will try to hoover you back into that cycle. Your birthday is a perfect example. Or they may just randomly send you a gift or flowers, which then puts you in a position where if you call to thank them, you go right back into the cycle. But if you don't call to thank them, now you're a horrible person. They send flowers, they send a gift as an apology, and you don't even say thank you. You can't even text them at the very least to let them know. But that's the whole point. So when you set boundaries with the narcissist, you have to make sure that they are boundaries that you can commit to keeping. That's why I always tell people, start small when you set your boundaries. Because if you start small, it's easier to keep them, and then you can just kind of add on as you go. But do not be surprised that as you start to set boundaries and as you start to figure out what's going on, that narcissistic friend will absolutely start to smear your character. Okay? Will try to get people to turn against you. Will buddy up with a new friend pretty quickly, start posting things on social media that they're out and about and they're on vacation and they're doing things together and they're laughing and they're happy. And you're going to sit there wondering, what did I do wrong? The answer is you did nothing wrong. You did everything right by setting boundaries. This is just not a normal friendship. Think about it this way. Healthy friendships do not involve trying to constantly one up each other. They don't involve constantly trying to make the other person feel horrible about themselves or just being rude to them and not talking to them for no reason. True, healthy friendships are a two-way street, right? Sometimes someone needs more, one needs less, and it goes back and forth. And you respect each other and you respect each other's feelings and you're there for each other. And if you can't be there for someone, they understand that it's not malicious. These types of friendships are draining. These types of friendships don't feel light, don't feel trustworthy, don't feel comfortable. They feel so unbelievably draining. You need to prep yourself to be with them. You're constantly walking on eggshells and you're constantly monitoring what you're saying, how you're writing a text message. Do you write them back? Do you not write them back? It's not easy. It's not an easy friendship to maintain. It feels difficult. The biggest thing is to remember that you have not done anything wrong. We don't expect friendships to look like this, but they do. They do. And so I think it's important that we focus on what it looks like so that you can identify it and know how to get out of it. Because friendships are different in the sense of, you don't live with them. You don't have to communicate with them. You don't have to see them, but you do because you're in the same area or the same circle. Or the other thing, and this is the last thing I'll touch on, is they know so much about you. You've told them so much when you first got to know them. And through the course of the friendship, they purposely have made it so that they could get things from you. And in friendships, if you confide in a friend or your best friend, even if the two of you get into an argument, you know that your best friend, you're not even concerned that your best friend is going to share personal, intimate details that you have told them about your life. But with a narcissistic friend, you can bet that they're going to use that information you've told them, vulnerable, personal, intimate details about your life, they're going to use that as collateral. They're going to make it so that if you in any way set a boundary with them, don't do what they want, don't address their needs, that maybe, just maybe, they're going to tell people things that you've said. They're going to tell people things that you've said about them. Because they'll get you in these situations where they talk about other people and they pull it from you. Don't be surprised if they relay that information to those people as a way to control the dynamics. They will hold that information and use it if necessary. So you're constantly worried if what you said is going to get out. if these personal details about your life are going to be told to others if you do something wrong, but you don't even know what that wrong is, because like other narcissistic abusive relationships, there's no rhyme or reason. The rules are just rules because it's a Wednesday at 3:00 and the wind's blowing to the east, and then tomorrow they'll change for no apparent reason. So that also makes it tricky to get out of these types of relationships. But the best thing you can do is, if you realize you're in these relationships, set boundaries, set small boundaries that you can keep, slowly increase them over time. Start to reconnect with people around you. Start to reconnect with things that you enjoyed that you've stopped doing. Start to reconnect with your family. Start to reconnect with yourself. Go for walks, do something by yourself. Get back to you instead of putting yourself on hold to accommodate the needs of this other person. So I hope that's helpful. And if you can relate to this, I hope that you feel validated and can kind of put some of these strategies and some of these suggestions to use. It is not an easy thing to get out of, like all narcissistic relationships, but it is absolutely doable. It is not your fault. And so, yeah, I hope that you can really use this to move forward in your life and reconnect with yourself if you find that this is a situation that you are in. That is all for today, and I will speak to you next time on Next Up Narcissism. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. I hope you found it useful, but most importantly, I hope you found it validating. Want to work one-on-one with me? Visit my website at drjamiezuckerman.com to book a personalized coaching session, and be sure to check out my on-demand workshops on topics like co-parenting with a narcissist, life after leaving, anxiety management strategies, and more. Again, that's drjamiezuckerman.com. You'll also find links to my interactive workbooks, merchandise, resources, and newsletter sign-up. Next Up Narcissism is as much your podcast as it is mine. I want to hear your feedback and what you want to hear. So make sure to leave a podcast review wherever you listen, or send an email to nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Again, that's nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to tune in next week to see what's up next on Next Up Narcissism.